Hey y'all, what's up? It's your girl Adina, and I'm back, y'all, with another interesting video and topic. And the title of this video is going to be "You Can't Change Who God Has Ordained for You." Okay, you can't change who God has ordained for you. So I wrote like so many notes in my notebook about this topic because it's really powerful and eye-opening, and it's simple, and a lot of people try to fight against it, but you can't fight against God, you know what I mean? So this can be applied to not only friendships but also relationships, so we're going to get more into that. Okay, so there's two important key notes that I want to make before I get started into this video and topic. So number one, it's not in God's will for everyone to be with someone. Some people God called to be alone, single, or by themselves, and that's not a bad thing. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, just because someone is ordained for you doesn't mean you won't go through anything. That's so important to know, remember, and yet people forget that. They think that once they're with someone that they're ordained to be with, that they're not going to go through nothing and it's just going to be a smooth ship, when it's the total opposite. Satan will actually attack you all more because you all ordained to be together. Okay, so that's key point number two. So I broke it down into two sections. We're going to start with friendships first, and then we're going to go to relationships and also use biblical examples of this topic and message, because this has went on throughout the whole Bible. Okay, so the examples that I will start with in friendships will be, let me find it. Okay, so the example for friendships will be Moses and Aaron, David and Jonathan, and Elijah and Elisha. Okay, so those will be the three examples in the friendships category. So let's get started. You can't change who God has ordained for you. Number one, Moses and Aaron. So basically, when Moses went up to Mount Sinai, he left Aaron in charge of the Israelites. So Aaron was Moses' elder brother, right? And the two worked together and did a lot together. So basically, Moses went up to Mount Sinai and he left Aaron in charge of the Israelites. And once the Israelites became restless, they started worshiping a golden calf. Okay, they started worshiping a golden calf and committing idolatry. So Moses left Aaron in charge of the Israelites, and he came back and seen them worshiping this golden calf, and Aaron tried to act like he ain't know what was going on. But this is just like one of the most simplest examples of two people who were ordained together. Moses and Aaron were ordained for each other. They faced Pharaoh together, the 10 plagues of Egypt together, and they also led the Israelites out of captivity together. Okay, and Aaron was basically Moses' spokesperson. You know, he spoke for Moses on his behalf. You can't change who God has ordained for you. Number two, David and Jonathan. So after David defeated Goliath, Jonathan was immediately drawn to David. You know, he was very interested in David. So Jonathan was King Saul's son, and Jonathan made a covenant with David. Okay, he made a covenant with David, and he told David that he loved David as he loved himself. That's some powerful stuff, man. So Satan used King Saul to basically attack David constantly and to try to keep David away from Jonathan. Okay, King Saul wanted to keep David away from Jonathan. King Saul, he was very angry and jealous of David. And he just couldn't stand him. Jonathan was King Saul's son, and King Saul hated David while Jonathan loved David. And ultimately, this is just another example of, David and Jonathan being ordained together. Now, Jonathan did die, in battle, but, Jonathan was very drawn to David after he slew or slayed Goliath, and he told him that he loved him as he loved himself. And that's just example number 2 of 2 ordained people in friendships. And I also want to note that Jonathan made many covenants with David. They both made covenants together. That's how close they were, as friends, and, Jonathan told David that he loved him as he loved himself. So that's also another, add on to David and Jonathan. But they made multiple covenants together. You know what I mean? And they did a lot together. Jonathan stood by David's side, and he really was rolling with him. So yes, David and Jonathan, they were ordained to be together. You can't change who God has for you. Number 3, Elijah and Elisha. So for them, Elijah seen Elisha in a field, and Elijah just basically threw his cloak over Elijah, and from then on, they became close friends. Like, they was best friends after that. And Elijah wanted Elisha to stay where he was so he could go to Bethel alone, because God wanted Elijah to go to Bethel. But Elisha was like, no, you're not about to just leave me here. I'm going to go with you. You feel me? Shoot. If you going to Bethel, Elijah, I'm going too. You know what I mean? And that's whenever he went to Bethel with Elijah. And another note I want to make about Elijah and Elisha was Elijah, he was the only person in the Bible that ascended up to heaven without dying first. So along with that, his friend Elijah was the only witness of that. So Elisha was the only person who seen Elijah ascend up into heaven. You know what I mean? That's some powerful stuff. So that just goes to show that Elijah and Elisha were ordained to be together. You can't change who God has ordained for you. So those were just the 3 friendship examples of that, and I'll give them to you all again. Moses and Aaron, David and Jonathan, and Elijah and Elisha. So now I'm going to move on to the relationships part of this. And the 4 examples I have of this are Adam and Eve, Isaac and Rebekah, Hosea and Gomer, and Joseph and Mary. So before I get started with the relationships, keynote number 2 that I said in the beginning of the video, which was just because someone is ordained for you doesn't mean you won't go through anything, and that Satan will attack that relationship or marriage more just because y'all are ordained for each other. That happens more in the relationships part compared to the friendships part. It doesn't happen as much in friendships, that keynote. It happens more in relationships and marriages. And that's why, relationships and marriages be falling apart, because the people don't be ordained for each other. You know what I mean? Satan comes and just breaks it apart. So just because y'all are ordained for each other, that's not going to stop Satan from attacking y'all. In fact, he's going to attack more. Okay? So he is going to attack more. So, example number 1 I want to use is Adam and Eve. So Eve was ordained for Adam. Okay? Eve was ordained for Adam, but Satan attacked anyways, because Satan don't care about you being ordained for somebody. His whole goal is to destroy and ruin whatever thing you got with somebody and break it apart. Okay, so even though Eve was ordained for Adam, Satan still attacked anyways. In fact, the Bible says Satan beguiled Eve, which means he deceived her. He charmed or enchanted her in a deceptive way and got her to sin. Satan attacked Eve and caused her to sin, and then her sinning caused Adam to sin. So Adam sinned with her, but Satan attacked Eve first anyways. You know what I mean? That didn't stop him. So this all goes back to keynote number 2, as I was saying before, that you being with someone will not stop Satan from attacking. In fact, he will attack you all more. You can't change who God has ordained for you. So example number 2 of the relationships part that I want to give is Isaac and Rebecca. So Abraham didn't want Isaac to marry a Canaanite, and basically prophesied to his servant that the girl who gives water to him and the camels will be Isaac's wife, right? So that prophesied woman was Rebecca, because she gave water to him and the camels. Okay, Rebecca was the prophesied woman that Abraham told his servant about. She gave water to him and the camels. And then after that, Rebecca left her family to be with her husband. Rebecca left her family to be with her husband, Isaac. And ultimately, this just shows that these two were ordained for each other, because this was basically even prophesied from Abraham to his servant. So this shows another example of you can't change who God has ordained for you. And sometimes he'll show you who's ordained for you through other people, or he'll give you different signs or messages. You can't change who God has ordained for you. Example number 3. Now, 3 and 4 probably show it best. But 3 is Hosea and Gomer. And then I'll get to number 4 after this, which is Joseph and Mary. But Hosea and Gomer, okay, this is like the perfect example. So the Lord wanted Hosea to marry a prostitute, which he did, and that prostitute's name was Gomer. Now, even when Hosea took her as a wife, Gomer was still cheating on him. She was still stepping out and sleeping with all kinds of men, and God allowed it. Okay, God allowed Hosea's prostitute wife, Gomer, to step out on him and sleep with other, men. And Gomer even left Hosea with kids, and she just kept committing adultery basically over and over again. But God told Hosea to stay. God told Hosea to stay married to Gomer. And basically how this ended was Hosea basically had to buy his wife back. He had to buy Gomer back with silver. He had to buy his wife back with silver. But this just shows that you can't change who God has ordained for you. Basically, God ordained Gomer, aka a prostitute, to be for Hosea. You know what I mean? Them two was ordained by the Lord to be married and to be together. You know what I mean? So there's that. Okay, so the last example, which is example number 4 of you can't change who God has ordained for you, is Joseph and Mary. This is also a great example of this. So Joseph and Mary. So with this, Mary was basically Jesus' mom. She gave birth to Jesus Christ. But the thing with this was Joseph wasn't Jesus' dad. Joseph isn't Jesus' dad. Now, Joseph, he could have easily left Mary and disowned her and just left her alone after she got pregnant with Jesus, because Jesus wasn't his son. But instead, he listened to the angel's warning and he chose to stay with Mary, okay? So even though Jesus Christ isn't Joseph's real son, Joseph still chose to stay with Mary and obey the angel's warning, okay? And that's really powerful, because imagine your wife coming home, or you see your wife's pregnant, and it's not yours. It's not yours, Joseph could have easily just left Mary alone and just disowned her, but he didn't. He chose to stay beside Mary and listen to the angel's warning. And the Bible even says that Joseph raised Jesus Christ like he was his own son, okay? So Joseph and Mary both raised Jesus Christ up, okay? And that's just another powerful example. That's another powerful example. And this just goes to show that Joseph was ordained to be with Mary. You know what I mean? Like, Joseph was ordained to be with Jesus Christ's mom, who was Mary. You know what I mean? Like, Joseph got a warning from an angel. You know what I mean? And he was ordained to be with Mary. And Joseph, he raised Jesus Christ like his own son. You know what I mean? So yeah, the 4 examples I used on the relationship side, okay? So I'm gonna just recap. The 3 examples of you can't change who God has ordained for you in the friendship section is Moses and Aaron, David and Jonathan, Elijah and Elisha. And then the 4 examples that I used for you can't change who God has ordained for you was Adam and Eve, Isaac and Rebekah, Hosea and Gomer, and Joseph and Mary, okay? And there's plenty of other examples in the Bible, but I just chose to use those in particular. But all in all, y'all, you know what I mean? Like, this applies to friendships and relationships and marriages. You really can't fight with God, or you can't change God's plan or will for your life. You can't change God's will or plan for your life. You know what I mean? He wanted Hosea to be married to a prostitute. You know what I mean? And that's just what that was, So I hope that y'all, receive this message in your spirit and y'all got something from this, because a lot of people fight with this like every day. You know what I mean? And then what a lot of people also do too is they try to make other people be for them. They try to make other people be ordained for them. But honey, listen, whoever is ordained for you, whoever God has ordained for you is for you, and can't nothing or nobody come in between that. Okay? So there's that. So that's about it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed it and liked it, and I will see you all in the next one.